Help support Name Explain by liking this video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. Traditions are weird things. In fact, just as I began writing this video, I stumbled upon a really funny definition for tradition: peer pressure from dead people. For some reason that just really made me laugh and got me thinking about traditions here on the channel. Now, am I a big fan of traditions? Well, on the whole, no, not really. But it can be hard sometimes to shake off traditions. I myself seem to be falling into something of a tradition here on the channel, especially at the start of the year. If you remember, my first video for the year last year was about the forgotten Celtic name of Great Britain, and it seems that we're going back to the land of Celts once again for our first video of 2020. Will this tradition stick? Well, I guess we'll find out in 2021. However, who exactly were the Celts? While it's easy to see the Celts as just one specific group of people clad in green with bow and arrows and red hair, this really isn't the case. In fact, simply calling this group of people the Celts is really misleading, as there wasn't one tribe called the Celts. The Celts were actually a collection of tribes who shared similar languages, religious beliefs, traditions and cultures. These Celtic tribes actually originated in mainland Europe, and this Celtic influence can still be found in Europe to this day with the likes of Brittany and France and the naming roots of Portugal, which yes has a video unto itself, go check it out. However, in these times the lands most associated with the Celts are the nations of Scotland and Ireland, and it's names of places in these countries that we shall be looking into today, with these names being the Irish city of Galway and the Scottish region of Galloway. It's crazy how similar these names are. Like, seriously, why had I noticed this already? The names are completely identical except that the Scottish name of Galloway has an extra L and O in the middle of it. The names are also connected in other ways too, one of these being their language connection. Much like with the people themselves, there isn't one language called Celtic. In fact, when we say Celtic languages, we're actually talking about two different families of languages, those being Gaelic and Brythonic. Irish and Scottish are both Gaelic Celtic languages, along with Manx, while Welsh, Cornish and Breton are Brythonic, though that's not too relevant for this video. Anyway, Galway is of course an Irish name and Galloway is of course a Scottish name, and while these are two different languages, they both reside in the Gaelic branch of the Celtic languages tree. Also, what's interesting to note is that Galway and Galloway are both in the west of Ireland and Scotland respectively. So, do their names have anything to do with their similar language origins or their similar geographic locations? Let's kick things off with the Irish city of Galway. It's the third largest city in Ireland with just over 75,000 residents. Galway is firmly in the west of the nation of Ireland. In fact, if you look on the map, it's more or less in completely the opposite direction from the nation's capital, Dublin. While it isn't the capital of Ireland, it's seen by many as the cultural capital of the land, as the city loves to celebrate Irish music, song, dancing, the language, and all things traditionally Irish. I imagine Galway very neatly fits the bill for what non-Irish people imagine an Irish city to look and feel like, hence why Ed Sheeran chose his girl to be from Galway. Well, I imagine so anyway. While the city is called Galway, the surrounding county is named County Galway too, named after the city, and the bay that Galway resides on is too called Galway Bay. And speaking of names, which we are pretty interested in here, County Galway is home to what's considered the longest place name in Ireland, with that name being Macandahedalahalia. No idea if I pronounced that right, which means piggery between two expanses of briny water. The city also has a popular nickname, that being the City of Tribes, and this is because for a huge amount of the city's history, between the mid 13th and 19th century, the city was controlled primarily by 14 tribes of merchant families, and when I say controlled, I mean it. Everything in the city, from the politics, commercial opportunities, and even the social lives of the citizens, were controlled by these 14 families, and of course the leading citizens and the mayor of the city would have been from one of these families. This period of time has maintained importance in the city, as we see with this nickname, and references to the 14 tribes can still be seen in the city to this day. However, the city didn't start with these tribes. Earliest recordings of the city come from a fort built there in 1124 AD, eventually being found as a town in the early 13th century. And of course from here the city evolved, being taken over by the aforementioned 14 tribes to become an incredibly important port in Ireland to the popular city it is today. It's definitely a city I wouldn't mind visiting sometime, though while we've looked into the history of the city and some of its most interesting features, none of that really covers why it has that name, so we should really look into that now, I guess. Like many places on our planet, Galway has a body of water to thank for its name, with that body of water being the river Gallia. This word of Gallia is Irish and means stony river, as if you were to look into this river's bed you'll notice that it's littered with stones, hence why it's called the Stony River. However, if you were to look at a modern map of Ireland, you will not find the river Gallia anywhere, and that's because it now goes by a different name, River Colib. So while the river may no longer have this name, the city that borrowed its name and eventually adapted it into Galway does. While this is seen as the most realistic idea as to where the name comes from, there is another hypothesis on the name that I found which seems to be a more traditional explanation. I read that in ancient Irish a catch-all term for foreigners was Gals, so it's also thought that the Gall in Galway comes from this term, as due to Galway being a port town, a lot of foreigners would have arrived by boat and settled there, and it's also traditionally seen that before King Henry II of England came to the land, Galway was just a small fishing town with a different name entirely, Ballinshran, which means a town of the little streams, so logically this etymology makes sense too, as in this story the settlement got the name Galway only when foreigners, aka Gals, settled the land. If this or the river story is true, I don't know. However, this Gal/foreigner etymology ties in nicely with the second place we'll be looking at today, Galloway. Unlike Galway, Galloway isn't actually a single city but rather an entire region of Scotland, though Galloway is more a traditional historic county of Scotland as opposed to one with legislative power. Galloway as a region is actually made up of two smaller regions, Kirkcudbrightshire and Wigtonshire. These two come together to form Galloway, and then Galloway comes together with the other historic county of Dumfriesshire to make up the modern county of Dumfries and Galloway, which is actually really boring now that I think about it. Why did I think talking about counties and their borders would make fun content? This county of Dumfries and Galloway has a population of just under 150,000 people, with of course the most populous place in this region being the town of Dumfries. It seems however that unlike the vibrant happening city of Galway, Galloway is much more rural, being made primarily up of countryside, though I did find some interesting facts on the location. In one town in Galloway resides the world's oldest post office, and Scotland's oldest working theatre is in Dumfries, and if you search Galloway in Google Images, nothing but pictures of cattle will come up. This is because the region has lent its name to two breeds of cattle native to this land, the Galloway cattle and the belted Callaway. Click on the video for names but stay for the county borders and cattle talk. I try to never disappoint. Galloway's history and its name are actually rather intertwined. Remember how I mentioned that in ancient Irish foreigners were called Gauls? Or the ancient Irish had a name for themselves too, Gaels, and it was around the 5th century AD that groups of Gaels from what would now be Northern Ireland set sail to find new land to live in. They would eventually find themselves in southwest Scotland, which of course is now Galloway. The Irish Gaels settled these lands nicely and spread their Irish Gaelic language, leading to large parts of western Scotland to become Gaelic speaking. However, this land wouldn't stay under the possession of just the Irish Gaels, as centuries later another group of people settled in these lands too, seafaring Vikings from the north. The Vikings settled among the Irish Gaels, and as generations of people went on they became more mixed, and because of this mixed Norse and Gael population in these lands, the area received the name from the Irish Gaels in their native Gaelic, Galway Galloway, with this name meaning among the Gauls and Gaels, which references the Gauls aka the foreign Vikings who settled in the land, and the Gaels aka the Irish who coined this name who saw the land as their home. Though it could be argued I guess that the Irish Gaels should have called themselves Gauls in this instance too, as the land of Scotland wasn't theirs initially, and like the Vikings their ancestors had traversed the sea to call that land their home too. But I guess by the time the Vikings did come over there, these Irish Gaels had been in the land for centuries, and it had truly become their home. Either way, the name Galway Galloway stuck around for this land, but as you can tell from my pronunciation, it was a bit of a mouthful for monoglot English speakers like myself. Also, huge apologies for my many butchered pronunciations of Irish and Scottish words in this video. Go tell me how awful I am down in the comments. So the name was simplified and corrupted to what it is today, Galloway. So, is there any connection between these names? Well, I really think yes. However, that connection is stronger depending on what etymology of Galway we choose to follow. If we look at the Stony River etymology, then no, they aren't that connected, minus the fact that both names come from Irish Gaelic. However, if we follow the settlement of foreigners etymology for Galway, then things get really interesting, and the names of Galway and Galloway become way more tied together, as in this case the Gall of Galway and Galloway both mean the same thing, foreigner, both referring to the foreigners the Irish saw residing in their lands, with it being the English in Galway and the Norsemen in Galloway. So if we follow this more debated traditional etymology for Galway, then we have two names that are really neatly tied together, though like I said this etymology isn't really seen as the correct etymology, but the traditional one. So I guess despite how much I slated traditions at the start of this video, sometimes it's nicer to follow them, and they create funner stories for us to share. Galloway and Galloway were suggested by Andrew Saffery, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explain's patron saint of Galway and Galloway. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explain video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explain Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Name Explain really does depend on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive Name Explain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Stick around and check out another video and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Name Explain. You can follow myself on Twitter at NameExplainYT. Follow me there and tweet the name Ed at me so I know you came from this message. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.